Challenge hosted by Pokemon Labs. We are ready to get into our top 8 match like we said. This is Giovanni Costa versus Christopher
Patiño.
Patiño. Thank you. I cannot read the team sheet because I am tired. No, it's been a really fun day though. This is I believe one of our first, if not the first, Regulation F tournaments. So we're going
It's our first here,
yeah, it is. So we're going in completely blinded, except we have some insight thanks to the regional.
I was gonna say there is a regional. There's a lot of like development to the metagame, but this is the first time we're really seeing a lot of these players playing against each other.
And this is something that I was gonna say. You can see here, like I said, it's a lot of times we're playing against each other for the first time. A lot of new strategies, except this right here. This is a very good case of Regulation E coming back, but modified. On Geo's side, which is the left, you're gonna see Goldengo, Incineroar, Ogerpon, Wellspring, Fluttermane, Urshifu, single strike style, and for a Giraffe. Meanwhile, on Christopher's side, you're going to see Indeedee, female, Armarouge, Torkoal, Lilligant, Hisui form, Fluttermane, and Walking Wake. So like I said, a little different because you have the Walking Wake on Christopher's side, but for the most part, pretty standard Psy-Fam / Sun team. Giovanni bringing almost exactly same team as Regulation E. However, a few differences like Terra Stellar on Urshifu Dark.
And Incineroar.
And Incineroar, which is always really, really nice.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to see Giraffe and Ogerpon on Geo's side, while Christopher is going to play that classic Psy-Spam Armarouge Indeedee.
I was going to ask you about that. The Armarouge, I felt like it was kind of going to fall out of the metagame a little bit with the Hatterene coming back with Expanding Force.
I think there's a reason specifically.
I think a big thing about the Armarouge is that it does work well with the Torkoal Drought.
It does.
It gets a little bit more damage out of that.
There's that, and also you have the option to go for Wide Guard. In this case, in Christopher's side, you have the option to go for Aura Sphere, which is something that Hatterene does not want to face. Like, if they see a Dark type, Hatterene doesn't want to go up against that. Armarouge is like, okay, Terra Grass, Aura Sphere, and now Incineroar's gone. And so Incineroar, it could be specifically the reason for Armarouge. I still think it's really good. And with Twisted Spoon, which is the item, and we see the Terra to Grass right away. So Incineroar, again, don't want that knockoff going and getting rid of that Twisted Spoon. I mean, it may, but at least your Armarouge stays up. But either way, that's something that's very useful. Just to not use Life Orb, you got that on Walking Wake, and you can still get that Expanding Force damage, especially with Helping Hand, which is what we're going to see, at least onto the Giraffe.
We'll at least get the single hit onto that for a Giraffe.
That does a lot of damage, over half.
It does a lot of damage, but still not a crazy amount, and the Giraffe, and that's a Life Orb Giraffe too.
You know,
and it does a decent chunk in return.
It did. I think this isn't terrible for Christopher at the moment. I think actually a good play right now is, you know, the question is, what is the fourth Pokemon in the back? Is it Fluttermane? Is it Lilligant? Is it Walking Wake? But Armarouge is in a good spot to just go for a Heat Wave. Incineroar can't really do too much onto it. I can U-turn now, which is going to be fine, but if you go for the Follow Me with Indeedee, it's going to take some damage. And probably live it, just enough. And so
knockoff could be pretty scary.
Yeah,
on Armarouge, honestly.
Wouldn't be surprised to see maybe Follow Me plus Heat Wave or Follow Me plus Trick Room, one of the two.
See the Follow Me, indeed. Indeedee.
Indeedee. There's that Aura Sphere connecting with the Incineroar, a really good pick, but it only does 80 damage.
Yeah, welcome back, Incineroar.
The Rocky Helmet damage is going to chip it enough, though. And that's one thing that you gotta pay attention to, which is something I may have made a mistake of, and that is the Trick Room is not up. So this is a really good position for Giovanni to forget that Urshifu and just decide, okay, you know what, Indeedee, nah, not happening. It is Focus Sash though, so it does have to watch out for breaking that with a Rocky Helmet. But I think this is the right play to go for the Detect first and then go for a Hyper Voice to at least get rid of the Indeedee. And then at that point, you do have to worry about the Psychic Terrain for Sucker Punches and potentially being slower, and that could lead to some shenanigans, but even if you do this, like I said here, if you go for the Wicked Blow on Armarouge and Hyper Voice, you just knock out both of Christopher's Pokemon. And it is important to note that neither Indeedee or Armarouge has Protect.
The Follow Me will come out. The Wicked Blow would still finish off the Indeedee. And the Hyper Voice, I think single target Hyper Voice will take down that Armarouge.
It's going to be close.
It's going to be close, but I think it gets it done. That is a little tag onto the Urshifu, so that means it doesn't have its Sash anymore.
It's not.
And the Hyper Voice does do it.
Yeah, and that's not great. However, there is a good silver lining here for Christopher, and it looks like Christopher did bring out the Lilligant. If Christopher brought out Lilligant, that's really nice because you can go for it after you right away with the Torkoal. If anything else, it's going to be a little trickier. And it is Fluttermane. Okay, it's not terrible, but there it's actually really good into the Urshifu right now because it is Terra Stellar, so its defense does not change at all. And a Dazzling Gleam should pick up a KO, I believe, on for a draft. I think right now you just go for Dazzling Gleam Eruption. I don't see any, because like I wouldn't be surprised to see a Detect and then just enough to where like Incineroar can come in, go for the Flare Blitz on the Flutter, and then that's it. Ogerpon can then start Ivy Cudgel the Torkoal.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
Bonk. But I think that's kind of the play. If you
I think just a quibble probably the Heat Wave over the Eruption, but yeah.
And also, yeah, it's true. It is choice.
Yeah, you don't want to get locked into Eruption at this point. But there's the Protect from the Farigiraf. We'll stay up this turn.
There is that Dazzling Gleam.
It is the Dazzling Gleam. That should just knock out the Urshifu, yeah?
It should. It's 4 times weak.
Surprised it didn't go for a Sucker Punch.
Yeah. Psychic Train's still up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which is important.
Yeah.
That will come into play potentially for... There is that Heat Wave, but it does not.
Heat Wave.
Yeah, so the thing is, Fake Out potential for is the only thing now that Psychic Terrain is going to really affect. It's I think the Dazzling Gleam... You know what? I think that actually the better play here is to go for a Moonblast onto the Incineroar. Not much it can do. You get way more damage. It is Assault Vest, so it's going to be tricky, and then basically you
should still finish off. Yeah, there's the Moonblast.
Not enough.
Oh, welcome back, Incineroar. That's such a ridiculous...
crazy.
It is the Assault Vest.
Oh,
and Torkoal does take the hit.
I do think
get that attack off. The Flare Blitz into the Flutter Mane. Will that be enough? In the sun, it certainly is.
That's a really, really solid play.
Ugh.
I think
that's rough. Yeah. I really did not think Incineroar was going to take that hit, and because it did, I think Gio's going to win this one.
Assault Vest Incineroar. Yeah.
Oh man.
Heat Wave does connect for the Farigiraf though. It's now going to come down. Okay, so the good news is that the last Pokemon is Ogerpon.
I don't think there's a possible chance that Torkoal takes this hit at like 4 HP.
Oh, that's right. I was at 4 HP. I thought it was still. Oh yeah, the Psychic did way.
Yeah,
the good news is you've got game 2.
The good news is this is a best of 3 series, and you do have a game number 2.
Yeah. No, if that was at full health, that would have been a different story, and then you could have been able to single target Heat Wave. But yeah, that didn't happen. I think if you're Christopher, you gotta go the same lead. It's an interesting case, and one thing I've seen with Christopher is the hesitance to click Trick Room. I personally think it's a good call. I'm not actually sure.
I've seen that a lot, especially bringing the Torkoal and then kind of hesitating to click the Trick Room.
Yeah, like that's a bit tricky.
Because you're giving up a lot of Torkoal's potential damage with the Eruption by forcing it into Heat Wave every single time. I also just don't like the choice specs on Torkoal in general. It's also always really nice, because then you're opened up to bringing like Specs Flutter Mane if you want that instead.
Yeah. Not to mention that Charcoal
like
Charcoal kind of does the same role. I think, honestly, both teams kind of brought the right Pokemon in. Wouldn't be surprised to see Flutter Mane switch out for Lilligant though, or maybe just even see Torkoal Lilligant lead. And then that way,
I would honestly like to see that. I don't really see the downside in that. I think you get a pretty, not free, but you get a very nice opportunity to just do whatever. I really like that lead in general with Torkoal Lilligant.
Yeah. The only thing is Fake Out. That's it. Which does, considering Lilligant doesn't have Protect and neither does Torkoal.
I mean, the only thing is Fake Out, except you can Paragus Lilligant and then close combat.
Yeah.
Although you'll be at -1 if it's the Incineroar's Fake Out, so maybe not, but...
But you are Focus Sash, so then you can go for the after you until you win. So I do think it's a better lead than Size. But I think Size Man's not terrible still. It's just...
It's not terrible, you just kind of have to figure out the route to victory.
And not go for Aura Sphere onto Incineroar, knowing that has Assault Vest next time. Which I mean...
My goodness, that Incineroar was bulky.
That took it way better than it had any right to.
It's still, after all these years, it's still stunning.
This is an interesting one.
Ogerpon Farigiraf up against the Size Spam.
You know, I personally think you Trick Room with Indeedee and you switch your Armarouge out right away into Torkoal and just start sweeping. I don't see any downside. It is 50-50 Trick Room shenanigans with Farigiraf on the field, but the chances of that happening aren't as big, but we're not going to see that. We're going to go ahead and see that Armarouge Terrestrial to Grass instead.
Okay.
It's not I mean, yeah, you don't get Ivy Cudgeled, but
It's such an early use of
it's
your carrots.
exactly.
Yeah.
It just doesn't feel like it's necessarily the right play, especially with fall only on the field. Like you
Yeah.
could have gone for that as well if you really wanted the Trick Room up.
Yeah, no, meaning you don't have to burn that. There's the Ivy Cudgel going to... Ooh, the critical hit onto Indeedee. The Hyper Voice will finish it off. Armouge will get to do something here. If it's the Trick Room, they'll be able to get that up for Torkoal. Hold your breath.
Oh, come on. Trick Room would be very useful.
It is the Trick Room.
I know we've been talking about that hesitance, but the Trick Room, I think, was the play. And at this point, you've got to...
At this point, Torkoal can come in and start really unleashing damage. Although, you have to be... Psychic Terrain's up. You actually do just kind of do all the damage here.
This is the play that Gio needs to make, which is going for Terrifier.
I guess the concern is, like, do you take Expanding Force plus?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
But I also think that you're able to underspeed Armouge. Most for giraffes are.
Okay.
And so you can go for the Hyper Voice before the Armouge goes for the Expanding Force.
That would be notable. I think it does actually underspeed. I think you're right.
Most for giraffes do. If they go min speed, or even a little less than neutral. Spiky Shield's the right play here as well.
Spiky Shield's also good. You'll get Armouge out of the way and keep as much of your HP as possible. There is the Eruption. It will be single target now.
Will that do enough is the question. Terrifier and Sun does about 50%.
Yeah, a lot of damage for all the resistances there, but not enough. Armouge does take the hit.
You know, I wonder if Heat Wave.
The Expanding Force. This will definitely take out the for a giraffe now.
Okay, Gio's still not in a terrible position because Urshifu is such a good Pokemon. Though it looks like Gio may have...
Well, also the Eruption is like half power now.
Yeah, which is very useful.
Which is very important.
But I think that you just still have a free switch in. I mean, depending on what comes out. It is Flutter, so it probably is faster. But at this point, Incineroar, not something you want to see.
Eat Eruption. Yeah, Incineroar eats Eruption. Incineroar literally eats Expanding Force. It should underspeed Armouge as well, yeah?
That's going to depend on the Incineroar set.
It'll depend on the training, but I believe it will.
I think...
And in that case, it can basically choose which of these two to knock out at this point. I don't think Knockoff actually takes down Torkoal, but it can definitely take out the Armouge before it gets to do anything. And then the Torkoal... I honestly don't even know if Torkoal at this health... Yeah, it's got to swap out.
Yeah, I would have switched Torkoal as well. I believe we're going to see Flutter here, yeah.
Yeah, and this means Ogerpon can do a decent chunk to Fluttermane if it wants to.
Yeah, with that Photosynthesis boost in speed, that's not great in Trick Room.
Yeah.
I feel like going for Heat Wave was probably a better call than Eruption, because now you're kind of locked yourself into that position.
There is that knockoff finishing that off, and yeah, I think Ogerpon can probably just use... I don't know, whichever, Ivy Cudgel or Leech.
That's a decent
amount. That's a lot of damage for Sun. For being in Sun. I guess that's just Fluttermane being Fluttermane. And yeah, now this is a pretty difficult spot to be in. We're near the end of Trick Room. Incineroar could just eat this damage though.
Incineroar is super bulky.
So scary.
Yeah, the Heat Wave.
Look at that! Incineroar takes like no damage.
And I think that means Giovanni Costa is going to move on to our semifinals here. It's not a guarantee, though. This Fluttermane gets a hit.
Fluttermane gets a move.
But even with a critical hit, I don't think a Dazzling Gleam is going to be enough to knock out this Assault Vest Incineroar, which is just dominating. There's a Moonblast.
I'll take out the Ogerpon. Yeah, Moonblast wouldn't have done it. We'll take out the Ogerpon, and then what? and then Golden Go comes in.
And there is still Trick Room in play. So.
And there's still Trick Room in play.
Okay, you know what? There is... it's gonna be, it's very, very unlikely, but...
I mean, you've got to protect here. And
protect Shadow Ball, yeah.
Yeah, and then, yeah.
Now there's the forfeit. So that is it. Giovanni Costa is going through to the semifinals. And again, just want to talk about the bulk of Incineroar. Assault Vest Incineroar is absolutely nuts. I mean, it took a super effective Aura Sphere, which is usually a 2-hit KO on Incineroar, and just threatened the entirety of Psy Spam right there with that one item choice. And then it was a really tough adjustment for Christopher going into game 2, I think. Still really good playing on both ends, especially getting that Trick Room up at the end there. It was a bit of unfortunate there with that Eruption, taking half health on that first turn, but it's still good logic. And Giovanni, of course, always really good on the logic department, and we saw that a lot in these past 2 games, and we will probably see him again in the semifinals. Whether or not he makes it to the finals is left to be determined, and you're going to have to stick around to find out. We'll see you then.